The late afternoon sun poured golden light across the empty playground. A little girl, no older than 8, sat quietly on the swing, kicking at the dirt. She noticed a boy sitting on the far bench, head down, fiddling with the frayed straps of his backpack. His sneakers were dusty, his hair a little messy, and there was a deep loneliness in his eyes. She hopped off the swing and walked over, tilting her head in curiosity. "Hey, you okay?" she asked softly. The boy glanced up, startled, then gave a tiny shrug. "Yeah. I guess." She sat down beside him, legs swinging over the edge of the bench. "You don't sound okay." Her voice was calm, but filled with a warmth far beyond her years. After a moment, she tilted her head again. "Where are your parents?" The boy hesitated, his eyes darting toward the school gate as if expecting someone. "They're not here right now." There was a long pause, and the girl's brows furrowed. Something about the way he said it didn't feel right. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a tall shadow stretch across the pavement. A pair of polished shoes stopped just a few feet away. Slowly, she looked up, her mouth falling open in shock as she saw the man standing there. The man's presence seemed to change the air around them, commanding, yet strangely hesitant. He was dressed in an expensive tailored suit, his tie perfectly knotted, but his expression, it was conflicted, almost pained. The boy froze. "Dad?" His voice cracked slightly, as if he wasn't sure whether to be happy or afraid. The girl blinked, looking between them. "This is your dad?" she asked in disbelief. She had expected someone ordinary, maybe a tired parent rushing from work, but this man looked like he had stepped out of a business magazine. The man cleared his throat, his eyes lingering on his son. "I've been looking for you." His tone was low, almost guarded. The boy's grip tightened around the straps of his backpack. "I didn't think you'd come." Something in that simple sentence hit the girl's heart. She glanced at the man again, her young mind already sensing there was a story here, one with hurt and silence woven into it. The man shifted awkwardly. "We need to talk. Both of us." His gaze then flickered to the girl, as if realizing she had been sitting with his son this whole time. "And, thank you, for being here with him." But before she could respond, the boy's voice cut through the moment. "Why now?" The question made the man freeze in place, the silence stretched between them, heavy and awkward. The man's jaw tightened, as though he were searching for the right words but kept finding none. "I know I should have been here sooner," he finally said, his voice low. "Things got complicated." The boy's eyes narrowed. "Complicated enough to forget about me?" His voice wasn't loud, but the hurt behind it felt sharp, slicing through the space between them. The girl shifted uncomfortably, glancing from one to the other. She didn't know all the details, but she could tell this was more than just a late pickup from school. This was years of absence wrapped into one painful question. The man took a step closer, his polished shoes crunching softly on the gravel. "I didn't forget," he said firmly. "Not for a single day. I just didn't think I was the father you deserved." The boy looked down at his sneakers, his hands curling into fists. "I didn't need perfect. I just needed you." The girl's chest tightened. She could see the man's face shift, guilt mixing with something like regret. And in that moment, she realized this wasn't just a reunion. This was a second chance, if he didn't waste it. The man took a deep breath, as though ready to say more, when suddenly, a voice called from across the playground. The three of them turned toward the sound. A woman was standing near the school gate, her eyes scanning the playground with a mix of worry and frustration. She looked to be in her mid-30s, dressed in casual but neat clothes, a messenger bag slung over her shoulder. "Ethan," she called, hurrying forward. The boy stiffened, his eyes darting between the man and the approaching woman. The girl noticed his posture change, like he'd just been caught in the middle of something he didn't know how to explain. The man's expression shifted, too. His shoulders straightened, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. When the woman reached them, she placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. I was so worried. You didn't tell me you'd be staying here after class. Then she finally noticed the man standing just a step away. Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Hello, the man said politely, though his voice carried a tension the girl could feel. I know who you are, the woman interrupted, her tone sharp but controlled. We've met before. The girl sat very still on the bench, sensing she was now witnessing a grown-up conversation that might explain everything. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. It's okay, he mumbled to the woman. He's my dad. Her eyes softened for a moment when she looked at Ethan, but then they hardened again as she turned to the man. And what exactly are you doing here? The man inhaled slowly, his gaze steady on her. I came to see my son, he said, his voice calm but with an edge beneath it. The woman crossed her arms. After all this time? You don't just show up out of nowhere and expect him to drop everything. Ethan glanced between them, his shoulders tense. Can we not do this here? He asked quietly. But his words seemed to drift past them, swallowed by the weight of the moment. I didn't plan to just show up, the man said, his jaw tightening. I've been trying to figure out how to make things right. And when I heard he's been spending time alone after school, his eyes shifted briefly toward the girl. I realized I couldn't wait anymore. The woman's expression softened, barely. Making things right takes more than a surprise visit. The girl, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. He wasn't alone, she said, her voice small but certain. I was with him. That made both adults pause. The man looked at her and gave a faint nod. Then, thank you, he said sincerely. For looking out for him. Ethan's grip on his backpack loosened. For a brief moment, the tension in the air seemed to crack, replaced by something fragile, hope, maybe. But then the woman said, if you want to see him, we're going to need to talk, privately. The man nodded once. I agree. Ethan frowned. What about me? He asked. The man glanced at him, a hint of a smile breaking through. You'll be part of that conversation too, son. They moved to a quieter corner of the playground, away from the noise of other children being picked up. The late sun was dipping lower, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Ethan stood between them, holding his backpack tightly like a shield. The girl stayed a few steps back, watching but saying nothing. She knew this was a moment meant for them. The man spoke first. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want a chance to be in his life again. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a mixture of fear and hope. The woman looked at him for a long moment before replying. You walked away once. What's different now? I realized I made the worst mistake of my life, he admitted. Every day I stayed away, I thought I was protecting him from me, but I was just protecting myself from facing what I'd done. Ethan shifted, his expression unreadable. So now what? You just come back, and everything's fine. No, the man said quickly. It's not going to be fine overnight. But I want to earn my place. If you'll let me. The woman's eyes softened slightly, though her arms stayed crossed. That's going to take more than words. I know, he said quietly. Then he looked directly at Ethan. If you'll give me a chance. I'll prove it to you. Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked down, then over at the girl, who gave him the smallest, most encouraging smile she could. Finally, he murmured, one chance. That's it. The man's shoulders relaxed just a little. That's all I'm asking. The woman exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of built-up tension. All right, she said at last. But if you disappear again, even once, you're done. No excuses. I understand, the man replied, his tone steady. You'll get no excuses from me. Ethan still looked uncertain, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes now, a tiny light that hadn't been there before. So, what do we do first? He asked hesitantly. The man glanced at him, a faint smile forming. How about something simple? We could get dinner. Just the three of us. Talk. No arguments. No rushing. The woman hesitated, clearly weighing her options, then finally gave a slow nod. Fine. But I picked the place. That's fair, the man said, almost relieved. Ethan turned toward the girl who had been standing nearby the whole time. Hey, you want to come too? He asked. She blinked, surprised. Me? Yeah, Ethan said, glancing at his dad. If it's okay with them. The man and woman exchanged a look, one filled with unspoken history and careful consideration, before the woman gave a small smile. I think that would be nice. The girl's face lit up. Okay. I'd like that. As they started walking toward the gate together, the man quietly fell into step beside his son. Thank you, for letting me try, he said under his breath. Ethan didn't respond with words, but he didn't pull away either. And in that silent acceptance, the girl could tell, this was the start of something new. The four of them walked out of the schoolyard, the last streaks of sunlight stretching across the street. Ethan stayed close to the girl, occasionally glancing at his father as if trying to read him. The man, for his part, seemed careful with every word, almost as if he didn't want to say the wrong thing too soon. They reached the corner where the woman had parked her car. We'll take my car, she said, unlocking the doors. Follow us if you need to, she added to the man. I'll ride with Dad, Ethan said suddenly. The woman paused, clearly caught off guard. Are you sure? Ethan nodded. Yeah, just for the ride. We can talk. The man's eyes softened, and he gave a small, almost grateful nod. All right. Let's go. The girl climbed into the back of the woman's car, buckling her seatbelt as she watched Ethan get into his father's sleek black sedan. The contrast between the old family car and the polished luxury vehicle was striking, but what mattered more was the look on Ethan's face, a mix of nervousness and a faint spark of hope. As they pulled out onto the road, the girl kept glancing at the other car through the window. She could see Ethan talking, his hands moving just a little, while his father listened intently. For the first time since she'd met him, Ethan didn't look so alone. The woman noticed her gaze and smiled faintly. You really care about him, don't you? The girl nodded without hesitation. He's my friend. And though no one said it out loud, both the girl and the woman silently hoped, that by the end of the night, Ethan might feel like he had more than just a friend, he might have his dad back. The restaurant the woman chose was small and welcoming, with warm lighting and the comforting smell of freshly baked bread. It wasn't fancy, but it felt safe, neutral ground for a conversation that could easily go wrong. They took a booth in the corner. Ethan slid in beside his dad, still clutching his backpack, while the girl sat next to the woman across from them. For a moment, no one spoke. Menus were opened, glanced at, and set down again. Finally, the man broke the silence. I know this feels strange, he said, looking at Ethan, but I want you to know I'm not going anywhere this time. Ethan's eyes flicked toward him. You've said things before, things you didn't keep. The man nodded slowly. You're right. And I can't undo that. But I can start proving I mean it now. The girl could feel the tension in the air, like everyone was waiting for someone else to speak. The woman finally leaned forward. Words aren't enough anymore. Ethan needs to see consistency. That means showing up, every time. No matter what. I understand, the man said firmly. The waiter arrived, breaking the moment, and took their orders. Once he left, Ethan leaned back in his seat. So, if you're serious, what's the first thing you're going to do? The man didn't hesitate. I'm going to be there tomorrow. After school. We'll get ice cream. Just you and me. Ethan studied him for a long moment. And if you don't show up? Then, the man said quietly, you don't have to give me another chance. The girl saw Ethan's eyes soften just a little. It wasn't trust yet, but it was the beginning of it. Dinner passed in a cautious rhythm, small bursts of conversation followed by stretches of quiet. The girl mostly listened, only chiming in when Ethan glanced at her as if to draw her into the discussion. She could tell he felt safer with her there, like she was a buffer between him and the uncertainty of the moment. After they finished eating, the man insisted on paying, sliding his credit card to the waiter without a word. As they stood to leave, he turned to Ethan. "Do you want me to walk you both to the car?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, okay." They stepped outside into the cool evening air. The streetlights had just flickered on, casting a soft glow over the sidewalk. The girl lagged slightly behind with the woman, watching as Ethan and his dad walked a few steps ahead. "You think he means it this time?" the girl asked quietly. The woman's lips pressed together in a thin line. "I hope so. For Ethan's sake." Up ahead, the man stopped beside the car and turned to face his son. "Tomorrow," he said, meeting Ethan's eyes. "I'll be there. No matter what." Ethan gave a small nod. "We'll see." Before getting into his car, the man glanced back at the girl. "Thank you, for being his friend. It matters more than you know." She gave a shy smile. "You should thank him by keeping your promise." The man didn't answer right away, but his eyes told her he understood exactly what she meant. The next day at school felt longer than usual for Ethan. He kept glancing at the clock, wondering if his dad would really be waiting when the final bell rang. The girl noticed his restlessness and leaned over during lunch. "You think he'll come?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. "I want to believe it, but I've learned not to get my hopes up." When the bell finally rang, they walked out together, the late afternoon sun warming the pavement. The playground was slowly emptying as parents picked up their kids. Ethan scanned the parking lot, his chest tightening with each second that passed. Then, he saw it, a sleek black car pulling into a spot near the school gate. The driver's door opened, and his dad stepped out, wearing a smile that seemed more real than yesterday's. "You made it," Ethan said quietly, almost in disbelief. "I told you I would," his dad replied. The girl grinned. "Guess that means ice cream." The man chuckled. "Yes, ice cream. All three of us. My treat." Ethan glanced at the girl, then back at his dad. This time, there was no hesitation in his voice. "Okay." As they walked toward the car together, the girl noticed something different in Ethan's face, not just relief, but the first signs of trust trying to take root. And for the first time in a long while, he looked like a kid who wasn't carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The ice cream shop was small and cozy, with pastel-colored walls and the smell of fresh waffle cones drifting through the air. Ethan and the girl pressed their faces to the glass case, pointing out flavors, while his dad stood behind them, watching with a faint, content smile. They chose their cones. Ethan went for double chocolate, the girl picked strawberry swirl, and his dad took vanilla with caramel drizzle. They settled into a corner booth, the warm light above casting a soft glow over the table. For a while, there was no talk of the past, no heavy words, just laughter about messy ice cream drips and playful arguments over whose flavor was better. It felt normal. After a few minutes, the man leaned forward. "Ethan," he said gently, "I know we can't fix everything in a day. But I'm here now. And I'm going to keep showing up. That's my promise." Ethan studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "If you keep that promise, maybe we can start over." The girl smiled at them both, her heart quietly cheering for this fragile new beginning. As they left the shop, the man placed a careful hand on his son's shoulder. It wasn't forced, and Ethan didn't pull away. The evening air was cool, and the streetlights painted a golden path ahead of them. They walked together, father, son, and the friend who had helped bring them back to each other, into what felt like the first chapter of a brand new story.